What's up, guys? How's it going? Welcome back to another episode of today's Misguided Mentors. Making sure everything is dialed in here. Hey, someone gave me a suggestion to shorten up the intro. And as you guys may have noticed, I just recently have been playing and added that intro. So I really didn't. It stops. I'm manually stopping it and panning over when I am done doing the actual. Whenever I want. So anyways, bear with me as I figure that out. Hopefully that was a lot shorter, especially because it's like blaring music. He was like telling me, he's like, yeah, I was driving, so it was a bit much. It was like in my face. I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. I bet it sounded kick-ass in your stereo too. But anyways, welcome back. I got something I want to chat about. If you're on Instagram, how's it going, folks? Be sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel. The link is in my bio, or you can just go to YouTube and search up today's Misguided Mentors and subscribe. That way I can see your comments and I'll be able to respond to you in real time. I got something real special I want to talk about. I talk about this all the time, but basically this topic that I'm bringing up is signs that you are in a cult. And I think this is super important to talk about because I've been talking about the similarities between, the cult-like atmosphere and the self-development space being relatively similar. And so I want to talk about some of those things and help you guys connect those dots. And for those of you who are like genuinely are wondering whether you are in one or were in one, this might help you identify that. So I thought it'd be really cool to talk about this, or at least break the ice on this. I'm not going to cover everything in one video. It's just simply impossible. So I thought it'd at least be good to start talking about this and get it going. So it's funny because right before I started this podcast, this particular topic, I had like 3 or 4 things that I had written down in my notes on my phone where I was like, oh, that's a sign that you're in a cult. Oh, that's a sign you're in a cult. And I was thinking about my own experience. And I got, it looks like eight of them, maybe 7 of them written down. And then right before I hopped on here, I Googled cult-like behavior or something like that. And then it listed a bunch of stuff on there, and almost everything I wrote down was on there. I've never Googled that before, and so I thought that was quite fascinating. And I thought it'd be interesting for me to go over what came up on Google and kind of juxtaposition the what I wrote down versus what was on there. It's not even verses, it's like the similarities and the direct correlation between those two. So it kind of blew my mind to see that. I was like, wow, that's crazy. I just wrote down almost all of those just from my own experience without even researching it. And so for those of you who don't know, obviously, my cult experience was being part of the 10X organization and being under Grant Cardone's mentorship for a few years. It was quite fascinating to me that the entire time I was with him, I didn't know he was a Scientologist. I didn't even know what Scientology was. And I've talked about this story before. When I left that organization, someone brought it up to me, the Scientology thing. And I was like, what's that? And so I looked into it, came across a couple documentaries on Scientology, watched them, and my mind was blown on the connection between the 10X organization, how Grant operates his organization, and how Scientology conducts himself as well. And so I realized after watching a couple documentaries and doing some more research that Grant Cardone has literally modeled the 10X organization just like Scientology. And so in my mind, I was like, holy shit, I was being turned into a Scientologist and I didn't even know it, because I adopted all that, his thought processes, his approaches, his agenda, all that stuff I pretty much also modeled and mimicked. So I was like, that's fucking crazy that I was literally being turned into a Scientologist, I guess, if you will, or at least, operating my life like a Scientologist without even knowing it. Very sneaky, very sneaky. So anyways, that's why I take an interest in this, and that's why I take an interest in not just cults, but the fact of how cult-like behavior is being used in the self-development space, in networking events, certain public speaking events you'll go to. There's this cult-like mentality and behavior and approach to it. And so I want to talk about that stuff so you guys can be aware of it, how you can navigate it, what to, just what to keep an eye out for. So, and also just do some self-reflecting on yourself, if you are involved with some type of group or organization or community, whether it's a virtual or in person, it'd be good for you to do an inventory and do an audit on that, and question and ask the right questions to find out if you're in some type of cult, or if any of these things I'm saying are resonating with you. So let's jump into it. Let's just get down to the things I wrote down. And it looks like I said, I wrote down seven different things, 7 signs that you can tell if you're in a cult. All right. And I'll talk about my 7, and then we'll reflect and look on the what Google brought up and kind of compare notes. All right. So the first sign I wrote down was the elite group mentality. So when, and again, it wasn't just Grant's organization. I have done a lot of different self-development, public speaking events I attended, and a lot of YouTube stuff I've learned from. And there's this vibe that is being created, I noticed, in the self-development space and networking events and so on and so forth, that you can be a part of this elite group, and that you should, because if you're not, that means you're part of an average society. You're part of an average, you're part of the bigger group of average people. And so average becomes quickly labeled on people who aren't doing enough, who are not living their full potential, who gave up on their dreams. It's this whole shaming of average people. And so it's framed in such a way that if you're not going to be part of this, you're not going to be part of this community, then you're going to be part of that. You're going to be part of someone who's living under their potential. They're going to be living with people who are average. You're never going to succeed. You're never going to achieve your dreams. And so there's a lot going on with that. So I want to stay focused on just this one thing, because you'll see some connections. I'm starting to see some connections already as I'm talking about it. And I hadn't even thought about how I wanted to bring it up or talk about it. So what's up, guys? Hey, if you're on Instagram checking this out, I encourage you to jump on YouTube and subscribe to the channel so I can see your comments in real time and kind of just get a little more support on that channel, because I'm trying to get more active on YouTube. That eventually is going to be my primary attention for content. And pretty soon I'll just stop doing the Instagram lives. I'm just trying to get people navigated over there when I'm doing the live. So just a heads up, and I appreciate everybody's support as well. But yeah, so let's get back to that. So there's this encouragement to join this elite group, this 1%, as they say. That's another term, right? The 1%ers of this world. You can be part of this 1%, and so it makes you. And so when it's framed like that, what's happening is it's kind of preying on your biological attraction to fit in with the community as well. So not only are you going to be fitting in, but you're going to be fitting in with like the elites, people who are above the average people, above average society, people who are going to be doing big things. You're part of a high performance atmosphere. There's just so much attraction to that when you think about it. Now, if you don't check your ego, if you have an ego, you're gonna have a really hard time fighting that attraction, that biological attraction that us as humans desire. And I think ego feeds into that. So if you have some type of ego, I would say do some self-reflection, see if you do or if you don't, and how you can let go if you're finding out it doesn't serve you. I personally think ego is one of the bigger sins, if you will, that really gets people into some trouble. And so, and pride as well. But that ego and pride are kind of one and the same, essentially. But yeah, if you're wanting to be the big dog, you're wanting to be part of an elite group, you're wanting to be labeled as high performance, 1%ers, the overachievers, the dreamers, all that, you're gonna find that invitation is very attractive to be a part of that group. So pay attention to that. If you're in a group right now and that was something that sucked you in, if that was something that attracted you to this organization, it was like, wow, these people are killing it. These people are doing something big. I don't feel like, I feel like if I'm going to join this group, I'm not going to be average anymore. I know I'm part of something bigger than most people can even wrap their heads around. I would pay attention to that. That's not a very healthy mindset and not a very healthy attitude to have. And not only that, it's being preyed on. So if you have that, don't think that that's a quality. Don't think that's a strength. You're actually making yourself vulnerable in a bad way. There's good vulnerability and bad vulnerability. Bad vulnerability is when you put yourself out there to be leveraged and have your vulnerability used against you. Vulnerability in a good way is just being transparent and sharing your thoughts, your feelings, and having a good heart and intention with that, but also having an ability to say no to things and assert yourself and have boundaries as well with that. So I think it's important for people to recognize this elitist mentality, this elite group thinking, and this whole narrative behind being, you're going to be average or you're going to be part of this group because we're going to the moon. We're high achievers. We're going to achieve our goals. We're successful. We're never satisfied. We'll get into more of that. But anyways, that is the first sign that I wrote down that you are in a cult, is if you are gravitating towards this whole facade of an elite group where you think better, you're thinking higher than average people. And you're just living on this higher frequency. So pay attention to that. All right. The second thing I wrote down here is, I hope this is helpful, by the way, before I just keep going. This is such an important topic to me because, right, I said this the other day, most people that are in a cult, most people that are being brainwashed, they don't know it when it's happening. You don't know it while you're in it. This happened to me. I had several people tell me I was in a cult, and I was so engrossed in the environment. I was so gung-ho for the message, for the, as Google put it, the authoritarian leader, that I would just deflect that stuff and justify it in my head as hate. People are just going to hate, or you're not going to understand because you're one of the average people. You're one of the, you don't have a business, so you're just hating on me. Like you don't know, you don't understand, right? I'm a big thinker. I'm a high performance thinker. You just don't understand. I would justify all this stuff and like condescend people in a way to justify that I wasn't in a cult. So I hope this is helpful. I hope people that hear this, I don't care if it's right now or if they stumble upon this video 2 years from now, 5 years from now, and they're like, wow, this is actually pretty helpful. If someone finds this helpful and it opens their eyes to something they potentially may be involved in that they had no idea they were involved in, or it was more of something they just didn't realize until I started talking about it. If that is the case, then I've done my job and I'm helping people, and exactly what I created this channel for is happening. So I pray to God that the right person sees this at the right time and something sparks in their mind. They're like, wow, that's exactly what I feel like I've been going through. Wow, I totally understand what he's saying. So because I'm here to help people, and going through my experience, all these things I wrote down, I'm going down the list of, this is stuff I experienced. So I'm giving you what I wrote down from what I noticed through my own experience of being in a cult. And then we'll go to what Google said. And it's quite fascinating how relative it is. So anyways, let's go. So I hope it's helpful is what I'm saying. All right. The second one is, I wrote down, think like us or me versus yourself. Okay. I know what I meant by that. So basically one of the things I've always said recently is that one way you can tell you actually you have like a ethical leader or a good-hearted mentor. I don't like the word leader, mentor or a coach, because I don't have a problem. I don't have anything against coaches or mentors. What I have a problem with is the 90% of coaches and mentors who are all self-serving and operate unethically. So the way I've noticed they behave is, or let me back up. The thing I've been saying is that you can tell if someone is a good mentor by they're either going to tell you to think for yourself, or they're going to structure it in a way that you need to seek them for the answers. You need to follow me or them because they're going to show you the way to success. That is not the sign of a good mentor, in my opinion. So going back to what I said, it's this encouragement. The second sign you're in a cult is this encouragement to seek me. I've done this. You need to follow me. You need to get in proximity with me because I've already done this. And so if you follow me, I'm going to show you how to avoid the pitfalls of the path that you're taking. All right. I have the answers. I have the solution. I have everything you need. And it's just this whole narrative of like, I'm the only one that cares about you because I've done it and I'm going to show you the way now. So pay attention to that. If someone is structuring it like that, excuse me, if someone is structuring it like that, that's a sign. That's a red flag. That's a huge red flag for me. So pay attention to that, because what happened with me was I ended up glorifying my mentor. I had, and again, it's funny to think about now, but, and it's, it can be embarrassing, but to be honest, I don't care. Like, I don't mind talking about it because I had lost myself. Of course, I was doing things that are fucking ridiculous. I was lost. I was literally idolizing somebody, almost like worshiping this person, It's crazy to think about. But anyways, I had pictures of Grant Cardone, like custom made pictures on my wall. 10X was branded all over my truck. Obviously, I was a 10X business coach for the organization too, so I was kind of repping the company. But man, I took it to a new level. I bought God, how many books did I buy? I think I bought 100 10X books. I had a stack of them and was just giving them to people. I was really promoting his message. That's how much I was so engrossed in it. And so that was literally the extreme. That's an extreme example of one, glorifying somebody, and then two, thinking like him. I literally adopted his mindset to the point to where I didn't even think for myself. That's crazy. It's so crazy to think about that I even got to that point. But, several years of that, and that can happen to a person. That can happen to the best of people. It can happen to very intelligent people. It can happen to people with a lot of business experience. It's going to happen to successful people, old people, young people. Brainwashing and manipulation doesn't discriminate, and it's happening in many areas of life. And the self-development space is just one of them. Self-development actually is a much easier industry to prey on people's vulnerability, because when you think about self-development, it's somebody that they're seeking more. They're seeking something else. They want to, do more. They want to, they're missing something. They dream big. They have, ideas. And so that stuff gets preyed on, and that's all good to do that. That's all good to want to do more, be smarter, be a better person in different aspects of your life. But when it gets exploited and you get and that type of vulnerability is used for bad, your good intentions go out the window. And if you're not careful, same thing is going to happen. The same thing that happened to me is going to happen to you. You're going to lose yourself. You're going to become a different person, and you're not going to be thinking for yourself. And a lot of people like I said, when you're in a cult, you just don't feel like you're in a cult. Now, you'll tell yourself, "Nah, I think for myself." But do you? Do you actually just stop time, everything, and sit there and think? You write down your thoughts. How did you form that thought? Was it because of someone else's information that was provided to you? Can you form thoughts without information? That's a good question, actually. That's a really good question. Because I can form a thought just off feeling. You know what I mean? And I don't think that's a bad thing if you're really good at feeling good energy and bad energy. So that's a whole nother topic. But I do encourage people to get more in touch with themselves so they can actually feel that energy instead of relying on information from someone's mouth. It's a very dangerous game you can play. So get more in touch with yourself and feel what's right and what's wrong. So anyways, that's the second way. Thinking that when the person who's organizing the entire group, is framing things in such a way to where you have to come to them for the answers and them for the success, and them for the advice, for them to show you the promised land, instead of them actually encouraging you to think for yourself, that is a sign you are in a cult. Pay attention to that. All right, let's jump down to the third one here. Actually, that was the second and third one. I didn't realize that, so I kind of just nailed two of them right there already. All right, so let's go to the fourth one here. Ignoring your gut feelings and red flags in your intuition. I kind of talked about that a little bit. You might have noticed, again, it's all relative. It all ties into each other. So the fact that I already kind of brought up the red flags and the intuition and feeling whether something's good or not, and that was the fourth sign that you're in a cult. This is what I meant. They combine all these things. Cults are very good at combining all these things and leveraging psychology to get to you. So once you have ignored your conscience, your intuition, to pay attention to the things that feel right to you and the things that feel wrong to you, you're in a bad spot. You're in a bad spot because anybody can manipulate you and anybody can, do coercion on you. They can get you to do things you don't want to do. And that especially includes spending money on things you don't want to do, because what more times than not, that's the agenda for the guru, for the person leading these elite groups. So do not ignore your gut feeling. This is one of the easiest things, yet hardest things for humans to do. If you are blinded, how do I put this? If you're chasing money, you're chasing ego, pride, sex, those are the type of things that are going to blind you if that's what you're chasing. All right. So there's like a pattern here I've noticed. This happened to me, and I notice it now that I went through this whole cycle. I can see how it's happening to other people. If that is your intention, that's what you pursue, and that's what you're all about. Once you start taking the bait on all that, you become blinded to your own conscience and your intuition. You're going to start missing those red flags. You're going to start ignoring the things that feel off to you. And I'll say this again, I've said it several times. If something feels off, it's because it usually is. All right. Do not ignore that. When you have to start talking yourself into things like, oh, yeah, maybe it's, someone's trying to talk you into something to convince you into spending money, let's say. And you're telling yourself, oh, yeah, maybe I need to get out of my comfort zone or all that. And you're like, yeah, maybe the reason I should is because, if I don't, I'm going to be average. Like now you're starting to go against your better judgment. You're going against your intuition, and your conscience. You're going to make a terrible choice. You're going to make a choice that's not in your best interest. So pay attention to that. This is probably the most important sign that you're in a cult is if you are ignoring red flags. So again, all these things I'm talking about, you can literally just stop time and do a quick audit. Like, am I part of an elite group? Does the group's leader or the person who's running this or created this, are they asking us to seek them for the answers and advice and follow them and get in proximity with them all the time? Am I ignoring my gut feeling? Like, is there some things that fell off to me that I may be ignoring? It's important to ask yourself these questions. Life is so fast. Like, we're always on Instagram. We're always on YouTube. We're always consuming content. And so it's very easy for us to continue to be blinded and ignore those red flags and things that seem off to us. This isn't it might seem foreign to people because they're so wrapped up in this consumption environment, right? Stop time, take a minute, take 5 minutes of your day, for God's sakes, and do an audit on yourself and ask yourself some of these deeper questions. And you might actually surprise yourself and shock yourself on things that you hadn't realized are actually going on in your life. So, ignoring your feelings, ignoring your gut feeling, ignoring your intuition, brushing to the side things that feel wrong to you, or as I call them, red flags, that is a sign you are in a cult. All right. That's a sign that you're out of touch with yourself, but that could be a sign you're in a cult as well, because you continue to do that to justify your actions to do something against your better judgment. So pay attention to that. All right. This was the fifth sign. Being pressured into making decisions when you're not comfortable with it. Again, I just talked about this a second ago. So if you're making decisions, usually it ends up being buying decisions, I noticed. But if you're making decisions that are not in your best interest, it's not that you're making a decision. If you're being pressured, more specifically, someone's trying to talk you into this, someone's trying to shame you. By the way, going back to this elite group, this is where all this starts tying in. Let me give you an example. So now you've been convinced to join this group means that you're in this elite group. All right, you're in this elite group. Whatever, you're in the Tony Robbins group. You're in the Wes Watson group. You're part of Andy Elliott's army. You're part of the 10X organization. You're part of this. You're part of a bunch of elite thinkers, right? You're high performance, a lot of rah, 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 right? Now you get into the sales transaction where most times someone's trying to sell you something in these atmospheres. And now they're trying to prey on that fact that, because they already know these people are smart. They know that people have a hard time saying no to things, and that's going to be exploited. So now they know that if you are in this group, there's a good chance that you are in it because of all those reasons. And so they're going to prey on that and throw it back in your face and shame you for it. So if you don't make this decision, let's say someone's selling you something for $20,000, right? And you're like, I got to think about that. Now the shame's going to come in like, well, I mean, I thought you were serious about, taking your business and your life to the next potential and to the next level. You are, right? And so you're like getting this pressure now that if you don't do this, that means you're being average now. And that's the whole reason you got involved with this community. You see what I'm saying? So this is all just a very relative bubble that you've put yourself in, and you are in their world. And so you've put yourself in a situation where you're constantly going to be pressured, and the very thing that attracted you to that group is going to be exploited. So that pressure sales thing, that fear mongering, all that is being your fears are being exploited. All that is being put back on you because they're trying to shame you and try to get you to go back on the things that you claimed you wanted to do differently in your life. So pay attention. This is why pressure sales are terrible. People don't need help making a decision buying things. I mean, this is technical. This is a technical thing, but what I'm saying is your job is to just if you're a salesperson, your job is to just give them a good experience, give them all the information they need, answer all their questions, and that's it, right? If they need time to think about it, let them think. Ask them how much they need to think. But the whole pressuring, pressure, trying to ask hard questions, trying to manipulate and harass and interrogate somebody into a sale and to make them give you money by using tactics like that. This is why sales is hated, is because what is being taught by 90+% is all this unethical business practices, including pressuring. And so pressuring is one of the most utilized tactics in a cult. So, pay attention. What's up, Lorraine? How you doing? Yeah, so you were saying, but when you are at an event, you get swept up in the atmosphere. I think they design it that way. Things are hyped up. 100%. That's that whole elite group. If you didn't hear that first sign that you were in a cult, I was talking about how they create it and they frame it in such a way to where like you're part of this elite group. You're part of the non-average thinkers. You're high performance. You're reaching your dreams, your potential. You're going to be successful while you leave everybody who's average in the dust. All right. And so now you're part of a very, very small group is the atmosphere that's being created. And then they feed on that. They feed on that. So it is very intoxicating. It's very attractive, and it's really hard. That's why I said, if people go into those type of communities based on ego, and you're feeding your ego, you're going to be blinded, and you're putting yourself in this predatory atmosphere. And they know that. They know that. And the ones that don't know that, like the young sales reps, they've been taught that. So they're just robots that are trained. They think they're doing the right thing. They're going through the motions. They're asking you questions based off a script that they learned. It's really all designed to prey on your fears and your vulnerabilities. All right. So being pressured into making decisions that you're not comfortable with is a sign you are in a cult. All right. Again, this is probably part of it. The sixth one I wrote down is always encouraging you to do the next thing and pay more and never be satisfied. Man, this reminds me of when I was with Grant Cardone, and all the time I would hear him talk about how he's never satisfied. Like he talked about, he's like, I'm never satisfied. And he would flaunt that, and he would brag about that. It's like, I'm never satisfied. The second I'm satisfied, I'm going to start, living average. I'm going to start losing everything that I worked hard for. I'm never satisfied. The second I become satisfied is the second I stop growing. So this is all, by the way, what a terrible message in my opinion. Never be satisfied. Like that is the farthest from being humble a person could ever get. Like never being satisfied is also the opposite of being grateful and living a life of gratitude, which I'm a huge fan of. I'm grateful for a lot, and living my life with gratitude has really put a lot of things in perspective and made my life a lot easier. I don't chase things. There's a lot of things that happen, but living a life of gratitude has definitely helped me a lot. And so never being satisfied is the opposite of that. And it really puts a lot of pressure on yourself too. So it's a terrible message. So anyways, one of the things that they like to do in these communities is always try to dangle the carrot in front of you as well, which is that whole encouragement of that next thing. Okay, you did this. Good job. You've done a good job. Congratulations. Now, the next thing is waiting for you. Now you got to hit that next level. It reminds me of Scientology. It's like OT8 is never ending. I mean, I guess there is a last level, but it takes forever to get there, and it takes a lot of money to get there. But it's a long road from what I learned when I learned about Scientology. So the cult, the 10X cult I was involved in is very similar. Matter of fact, I don't think there was an end to their organization. There was always something else to buy. There was always something being dangled in front of you. There was always a shiny object and a carrot for you to pursue and chase. And it always ended up being more and more and more. I talked about the last thing I bought, I think was maybe it wasn't the last thing I bought. I think the last thing I bought was GrowthCon tickets. But the $40,000 program I bought from Brandon Dawson, the 10X 360 program, that was supposed to answer all my questions. It was supposed to take my dreams to my business to the promised land, and all the answers I could ever have, all the questions I could ever have are going to be answered, and I'm going to know everything about everything to take my business to the next level. Well, when I got there, that's not in fact what happened. When I got there was I got taught the same things I was already doing in my business, nothing special at all. And then what was pitched, what was upsold there was that if you're serious, you got to take this to the next level. And so you're going to have to platform your business, which is another $300,000. And I was like, what the fuck? Like, are you serious? Like literally spent $40,000 for a 2-day event. We're talking $20,000 a day times 2. That was a waste of time that I got manipulated into buying. And then when I show up, well, actually the real answers and the real growth is in the next level. It's in the next thing, which is $300,000. I couldn't believe it. And that had been after several years I was with Grant Cardone's organization. So I talked about that because that was obviously my experience. And so that's an example of how like they always keep you chasing that next thing, a retreat here, a boot camp here, a course here, a mastermind, mentorship, weekly mentorship. I must have had 4 different 10X calls that I was attending every week. Fucking ridiculous. So that's not the only organization. There are several organizations that do the same thing. Scientology obviously does the same thing, but there's a lot of other cults. And so pay attention. If you're in part of an organization or a community that is always trying to encourage you to do the next thing, and spend more money, more time, more showing up, more, that is a sign you are in a cult as well, especially if it costs you money. All right. So pay attention to that. All right, the last thing I wrote down here, and then we can kind of get into what I pulled up on Google, was when you question ethics, or you have a question or you question logic, and it's met with like disregard or hostility or like flat out ghosting and separation, meaning you don't hear from this person ever again. When you start questioning things, or you're just like, it doesn't make sense, or why is it done this way, or you know what I mean, and you're like real adamant, and it's met with like a lot of not an open mind. It's met with, you know, a very closed mind, and this whole disregarding, this hostility. It's met with like shaming you. First of all, that's not a mature conversation. Let's put it that way. One, on a basic level. And then two, that is definitely a sign you're in a cult. Like when someone is trying to get you to adopt the community mindset, and nothing else matters, anything other than this thought process, anything other than these values within this community, is bogus and coming from average people, coming from people who don't know. Again, you heard me talking about that example earlier where I had people telling me I was in a cult, right? And I was just justifying it in my head by thinking the exact thing I'm talking about. I was thinking, yeah, they're just being a hater, or you know, they've never had a business. They're still working for people. What do they know? You know, I've been running my business for several years. They're being average. They gave up on their dreams. Like the same thing is very relative with this. And so pay attention, because you should be able to ask questions. You know what I mean? Especially if you're spending money with an organization, and you're spending money, you're spending so much time, and you're investing and all that. Like you should be able to ask you should be able to have an adult, mature conversation with somebody about anything, not met with hostility and like, oh, well, yeah, you know, you're just being average, or you're just being a hater, or you're just being that. I'd be like, I don't think so, man. I think I'm just trying to have a conversation with you about this, and having you help me make sense of why this is structured that way. So pay attention to that, because that is one of the real telltale signs, I think is how they put it. That's a real sign that you're in a cult, is when someone is not accepting because what's happening is you're thinking for yourself. That ain't tolerated in a community that's trying to brainwash you. That ain't tolerated in a cult. Like you can't think for yourself. You got to think like us. Like we have the answers. We have the solution. We have the mindset that you should have. So you should think like us. And that is a sign you're in a cult. Like you should be able to think for yourself. You should be encouraged to think for yourself. So, man, I got a dry throat here. I got to wet my beak. All right, so that was the last sign that I wrote down. So, again, that last one was when you start questioning things, when you try to have a hard conversation about some rule or some thought or guideline within a community, and it's met with hostility, and it's met with someone trying to really just ghost you and be like, yeah, I'm out. I don't want nothing to do with this. Usually that's a sign you're in a cult, because most people should be able to have an adult conversation, a respectful conversation, even if it's a disagreement, especially if it's a disagreement. If it's a disagreement that really shows a level of respect and the level of maturity that a human being that you can have as an adult. So those are mine. And now, before I do that, just what's up, guys? How is it going? Christine, what's up, everybody else? What's up, Lance? How you doing, brother? Alan, Sherry, Prince, how you doing, brother? Yeah, so let me, Prince, if you're still on here, I'll pull you up on here. I see that you're trying to hop on, and I will do that, but let me wrap up this really quick. I gotta go over what Google came up with. And then once I wrap up the podcast, I'll hop on the Instagram live. So let's compare notes now, guys. I gave you my signs. Again, that's not even all of them. That was just some. I just came up with a handful to kind of get started on this topic. And I don't think this can be covered in one podcast or one stream. But those are mine, and those are based off what I noticed in my own experience. Isn't that crazy? That's not even some, like, I don't study cults. The most studying I've done. I mean, I have now. I've watched some documentaries, but I don't have a long history of studying cults. Like, I've studied my own experience of being in a cult. So it's crazy how I got all that information just by reliving my own experience. So let's see what Google brought up here. Let me share my screen. Bear with me here. What's going on here? Okay. Let's get this bad boy up here. Let's get this logo off so we can see it. All right, so check this out. And I know you guys can't see this, but you'll be able to hear me. So I went over my signs, and then I Googled right before I hopped on this podcast, just out of curiosity, cult-like behavior, right? I was like, let's see what Google pops up. A lot of these are the exact same thing I was just talking about, so let's go through these really quick. Signs of a cult-like behavior. Isolation is the first one. Members are separated from friends and family and may be forced to cut ties with them. So you heard me talking about that, right? You heard me talking about how basically, I did this without even knowing it. I wasn't really encouraged to separate. Well, yeah, I was actually, but it wasn't like, hey, you need to. No, I actually was. That's crazy. Several times. I remember Jared Glant. If you don't know who that is, that's Grant Cardone's vice president. He said that several times. Like, you got people that are holding you down, he would always say. You got people dragging you back. Again, some of this may be true. Some people do have people dragging them down, holding them back, but this was taken out of context. This wasn't for that. This was designed to keep you in that elite group mentality and to cut ties with people that are actually good people. When I started doing this, when I started isolating myself and started putting myself on a pedestal because I thought I was a bigger thinker, I thought I was a high achiever, I thought I was in part of this now elite group, I was spending a lot of money, all this stuff like that. I separated and cut myself off from lots of friends and family that didn't even deserve it. Like good people. And when I think about that now, that's pretty sad. And that's pretty sad that I was taken to that point to where I thought just merely talking to somebody or visiting them and having a conversation with them was going to reverberate to me and change my mindset and get me to make decisions that, like, that's so far from the truth. Like, I don't even agree with, the whole statement that's always thrown around in the self-development space. You are the sum of the 5 friends you hang out with or whatever like that, right? Yeah, sure. Maybe if you hang out with 5 friends who are, smoking weed all the time and don't do anything and have no ambitions and live with their parents and don't have a job, if you're hanging out with them for a year or two, then sure, probably by default, you might start adopting some of their thoughts. Maybe that's not even in that scenario, that's not even 100% true. So I think it's far from the truth. I think that statement more is to frame it to where you should get in proximity with the high performers, the elite thinkers, the community. It's all to feed that community agenda. So I did that though. And when I think about that now, I probably severed a lot of good relationships from good people just by simply avoiding them and ghosting them and not reaching out to them and not talking to them. Or when I did talk to them, there'd just be like a condescending tone from me or something like that where I thought I was better because I'm living my potential. They're living below their potential, and they gave up on their dreams and I'm pursuing my dreams. I just thought I was better, I guess. And that's a really shitty way to live life. Let me put it that way. Very unfulfilling just to be in that mindset. So let's go back let's see the second one here. Control. The group has excessive control over their members' lives, including their relationships, finances, and personal choices. All right, so one could say, it's funny when this I got to talk about this really quick. The word control, I hate that because when I don't use that because when I first started talking about my experience, or when I talk about how people are getting scammed, ripped off, deceived, manipulated, harassed, interrogated, shamed into doing business, some of the comments that always come up is like, oh, well, They deserve that because, no one's forcing them to do it. No one made them spend the money. No one made them do this and that. Of course not. Of course, nobody actually physically grabbed them and said, do this, do that. But you got to realize the mind is much more powerful than anything on this planet. Everything that we even have on this planet has been brought to life because of someone's mind. All right. So if you don't think that someone can get inside of someone's head and influence them to do things against their better judgment, you are sadly mistaken. And not only that, there's a good chance if you think that you're probably being taken advantage of in that respect as well. Meaning you're probably doing things that you don't even realize that you don't want to, because someone's influenced you to do it. So I would pay attention. That goes back to thinking for yourself and all those things I talked about. So the whole control thing, yes, when I think of control, it's like, yeah, that is a form of control. That's straight up controlling someone, influencing them. You pretty much have their mind. I've said this several times too. When you get caught up in a cult like this, yes, they get your money. Yes, they are after your money. Yes, they're after your support. But what they're really after is your mind. Because when they have your mind, they have more than your money. With your mind, they got your loyalty. You're out here promoting them. You're literally recruiting people by spreading the message. I used to do this. I used to always talk about 10X. There's so many people that I brought into the 10X community just by me talking about it. All right. So they got more value out of me, more than just my money. Their value was me promoting it, me being loud about it, which is why that podcast the other day I did with Kira when she was talking about the it factor. That's why people who have the it factor are really valuable for that, because they have such a powerful energy about them and can really attract people. And if you're not careful, that person can attract other people to something good or to something bad, like I was doing. Very unfortunate. So yeah, control is definitely something that's happening. All right, let's look at the other one here. Fear tactics. The group uses fear to control members, such as threats of physical harm, shunning, or eternal damnation. Okay, so a lot of cults don't talk about threats of physical harm. Obviously, Scientology, from what I heard from documentaries with Mike Rinder and Leah Remini and a few other people, they definitely use physical harm. The shunning and the eternal damnation. All right, so there's a form of that going on. Instead of, so in the self-development space, instead of eternal damnation, it's more like the fear of being average. All right, it's all relative. All right, just like a religious cult might put the fear that you're going to go to hell. A self-development cult is going to put the fear in you that you're going to go to be with average people who are not living their dreams, living under their potential, never going to be successful, which in some cases might be worse than hell. Right? So that's scary for people if that's something, that you don't want to be a part of, and like you've brought to life and made real in your own head. All right. So it's very relative. All right. So definitely fear-based tactics are being used. And like I said, those same exact tactics are going to be used to get you to make a buying decision that you don't want, or feel comfortable about, or just know that's not even in your best interest. Much like the decision I talked about, and I feel like I brought it up several times over the last few days, but when I talked about how I bought 10 Cardone University accounts and I only had 2 employees and I was the only sales rep. I bought 10 accounts for one sales rep, and they were able to manipulate me into thinking that it was in my best interest by putting the fear in me. And so there's like this whole deceptive process that sales reps go through in a cult. So let's see here. Let's get back to this. This is crazy because this is literally what I was just talking about. I don't know if you guys realize that. I literally went down my 7 signs, going down these signs. It's all the exact same thing. All right, no room for questions. Right? Critical thinking and dissent are discouraged, and members are expected to conform without question. I just talked about that also, about how if you question something or you ask about some logical stuff, you're wondering, and it's met with some what did I say, hostility and disregard and ghosting and people separating from you, that's a sign you're in a cult. No questions, no room to have a mature conversation with you is more or less what we're talking about here. What's up, guys? If you're on Instagram, you're just popping in, make sure, I'm going to give you a reminder, make sure you subscribe to the YouTube podcast channel. I really appreciate it. Jump on there. Just go to my bio and click the Today's Misguided Mentor link. Go there, or just hop on YouTube and put in Today's Misguided Mentors and subscribe. That way I can see your guys' comments and I can engage with you there, because soon I am going to just put all my focus into YouTube. So I want to make sure everybody that wants to stay up to date and help me and help other people, more particularly, to get that support on that channel. I appreciate you guys. So why can't I say this word? Authoritarian. All right, authoritarian. There we go. Authoritarian leadership. All right, so the group is led by someone with absolute authority and power over others. Again, this is something that's not really talked about. Obviously, Scientology, it is talked about. You had Ron Hubbard, who then passed away, and then next thing you know, David Miscavige stepped up to take to the plate. And so, yeah, I would argue there's definitely always a leader, whether or not it's announced or not. We know when there's someone that's being put on a pedestal or glorified or worshipped. And this is dangerous, because if you see, this is another sign, because I've seen this quite a bit. If you're in a networking event, you're in a group, you're at a public speaking event, you're at a mastermind, a boot camp, some event that has a lot of people there, and there's one person that's organizing all this, pay attention to the energy in the atmosphere. If it looks like everybody's literally glorifying and worshiping this person, like and really just looking, all they want to do is get a picture with this person, so they can post it on their Instagram and look like they got some credibility, like their friends or something like that. There's a weird energy of like worshiping somebody and idolizing somebody. Like you can definitely respect somebody and hold them in high regard, but there's like a fine line where it goes from holding somebody in high regard to literally idolizing them, like listening to everything they say, taking all their advice, just feeding off the room's energy of like, yeah, I don't care what comes out your mouth. Yes. So pay attention to that, because that's definitely another flag that you're in a cult. So, all right, let's keep going down this. Black and white thinking. The group promotes a simplistic worldview, often positioning itself as good and the outside world versus evil. Okay, so this goes back to what I said on my first sign that you're in a cult, and that's being part of this elite group and this better than average group. So that's what they're referring to as a black and white thinking, is that, first you're part of this group, and now we're promoting simple saying, and that's where all those sayings come in. I don't know if you guys remember, but I went down some of the sayings. Did I do a podcast on that yet? I don't know if I did, but if I didn't, I'm going to be doing that pretty damn soon. I have a feeling I did, but I know I've talked about it, about the sayings that can hook you in the self-development space. I did bring this up, actually. The whole network is your net worth. Those who pay attention. I talked about one of them, even the saying that Grant said, where I'm never satisfied. Second I stop being satisfied, or second I'm not satisfied. Wait a second. Am I saying this right? The second that I start being satisfied is the second I stop growing. Yeah, when he said that, that's part of the simplistic elitist mentality, right? I said a lot, I used a lot of sayings that I heard in the networking space. Your net worth is your network. Invest in yourself. Commit first, figure out the rest later. Success leaves clues. All that stuff is part of this black and white thinking of a group, of an elite group that promotes this simplistic worldview that is better than everybody else and that nobody else realizes. And so pay attention to that. That's definitely a sign. This is crazy, actually, looking at this. All right, punishment. The group may punish doubts. Or questions, use other tactics to wear down members. All right, so I don't think, again, the only cult that I know that does that was off the top of my head is Scientology, but there's a lot out there. The cult that I was in didn't do like punishment like that. More, their punishment was shaming you, making you look like an idiot, making you feel like you're dumb, making you feel like you're average and you gave up on yourself, and that you're letting your family down, you're living below your potential. That's their form of punishment. It's shaming you, and actually that form of punishment keeps you coming back and feeds into your fears and doubts and uncertainty, and your need and your biological desire to be a better person that's exploited and taken advantage of. Let's talk about this last one here: sacrifices. The group may require members to make inordinate sacrifices, such as giving up money, belongings, or their bodies. All right. I have a lot of experience with this one, actually. This is one of the other narratives that's being thrown around in these self-development cults, is that you got to give something up to get something. Again, this could be a good message. I think this type of message is very much in context. I think this message is very dangerous if you're not aware of yourself. So I would pay really close attention if someone's saying that. What's up, Mong? How you doing, brother? Yeah, exactly. A lot of them do that. The shame, the ostracizing, belittling, it is done on a subconscious level. Exactly. It's not so direct, and that's even more dangerous. It's like this. These guys are good, and the ones that aren't good, like the 20-year-old snot-nosed kids that are just being taught this, they're just robots for these organizations. They don't even know what they're doing. They don't even know what they're taught, and so that's almost even more dangerous. I don't know who's dangerous, the one that doesn't know what they're doing or the one that knows very well what they're doing and they're crafting their manipulation process. But you're right. It is on a subconscious level. It's not like someone's directly shaming you and telling you like, all right, I'm going to shame you now. I'm going to make you feel like a piece of shit, or I'm going to make you feel like you're less than. I'm going to make you feel like you're coming up short on your life. I'm going to make you feel like you're not serious. All that stuff. They don't tell you like that. It's very under the radar how that is happening. So you're 100% right. But going back to the shaming, or not the shaming, excuse me, the sacrifices. Again, yes, sometimes in life you might have to make a sacrifice in order to, you might have to take, as I call it, sometimes you have to take one step back to go forward 2 steps. And I do believe that, but it is very, very much in context. And that doesn't apply to everybody, and that doesn't apply in every scenario. And most certainly doesn't always apply in a business buying decision. You know, a lot of that is, yeah, I made a huge sacrifice. You know, I was so engrossed with Grant Cardone's organization that I told you about some of it. But some of the, one of the biggest sacrifices I made was I collapsed my company and I moved across the entire United States to get closer to Grant, to become an elite coach. That was how much I was so brainwashed with this message, this sacrifice message. Literally packed up my entire family, hit the road. I believed there was going to be something better for me if I made the sacrifice. Obviously, that's not what happened. The exact opposite happened, which honestly was a better scenario. I realized that I was in a cult, and so I ended up waking up, and I ended up getting back to myself. I started, getting in touch with myself, getting my intuition back. Now I'm helping people with this. Now I'm actually like teaching people how can you navigate the self-development matrix, especially as an entrepreneur, as someone who's looking for answers, as someone who wants to be a better person in their life or business. How can you navigate that space without being taken advantage of, without being deceived, without being preyed on by predators? And so that became my passion because of that sacrifice I made. But a lot of people don't get that blessed. I'm blessed. I had the awakening. You know what I mean? I'm not necessarily blessed. I went through the experience. Maybe I am. But nonetheless, there was a sacrifice made, and there's plenty of sacrifices that came before that. Obviously, I told you about some of the business expenses. The most obvious sacrifice I made was spending lots of money. Lots of money that was not in my best interest, all right? 10,000 here, 20,000 there, 40,000 here, 20,000 there, 5,000 here. It was money just flying out the window without thinking about it, because I would commit first, figure out the rest later, right? I understood that I needed to make sacrifices. All that shit it's not real, all right? And so I think that, again, going back to the sign where I talked about how, if someone's encouraging you to think for yourself or think or adopt their thought process and do the things that they're saying, that should be applied to your sacrifices. Meaning, if you think you should make a sacrifice, then that should be up to you. That shouldn't be up to someone preaching to you that sacrifices need to be made in your life in order for you to grow. Sacrifices, you want to get to that next level, you're going to have to sacrifice. It might cost you money. You might have to sacrifice time, money. I've heard these conversations so many times, being trapped inside of a big room, small room, and everybody's just fucking being brainwashed with this message. So you got to be careful with the whole sacrifice speech that you're getting from a mentor or a coach or a leader, right? The as they call it, the authoritarian leader. By the way, Mong, dude, he sent me. I appreciate your resources, brother, because you sent me. You blew my mind with a lot of information regarding cults, and pretty soon here I'm going to tap into that and your resources and what you learned, because you really sent me down a rabbit hole, and I was like, wow, this is crazy. I never knew about this. I didn't know that like these cult-like atmospheres and approaches have been done for long time. Long time. This isn't nothing new. This is nothing new that happens in religious cults, happens in self-development cults, business cults, whatever. There's a pattern and there's a format. There's a recipe. There is a formula for this, and everybody just repackages it and does it in their own unique way. But when you get down to the bare minimum and the structure of it, it really is all the same. The whole manipulation of a cult is really all a recipe and the same formula that's been done over and over and over and over. And so once you can recognize that, you will be hyper aware of you being sucked into a cult, or if you're already in one. And I hope you're not, but there are a lot of people that are in a cult right now and they don't even realize it, because that's just the way it goes. When you're in it, you just don't know it. And I wish there was a way to wake people up while they're in a cult, but it seems like more times than not, it doesn't happen like that. It's because you're so engrossed in that atmosphere and in that environment and that energy that everybody's feeding off of. But anyways, going back to what I said about you, Mong, when I get time, I'm gonna dive into that and probably unpack it on one of these podcasts, because I would love to talk about that, because it's quite fascinating. Yeah. And it's kind of it's a new angle that people aren't aware of too. Because if I'm just as surprised by reading it, I think everybody else is going to be just as surprised hearing about it as well. So, but yeah, I hope this was helpful. Again, I know most people, like, I hope someone watches this later on down the road and sees it. And out of all the things I've said before, I've put out like 90-second reels on Instagram, and someone had reached out to me and said, dude, I seen this, you talking about this. And it completely sparked a light bulb in my head, and realized that, I was about to make a $20,000 decision. I realized it was not in my best interest, and I was being manipulated. And so thank you. I did not do it. If I can make an impact off of 90-second reel, I hope to God that someone who is in need, who is either not in a cult yet, or in it right now, or in some type of self-development community who operates like a cult, I hope that someone sees this and it impacts them, and something I said resonates with them, and realizes something that has been off to them. All right, because that's really what this is about, is like enlightening people, heightening your senses. It's really just getting you back to your own senses and your own intuition and your own conscience. We all have the same readings. We can all read energy. Some of us don't read it well because we're constantly blinding our senses by taking temptations, the ego, the money, the pride, the sex, all that shit is going to continue to blind most people. So if you're chasing all that, it's going to be a lot harder for you to see deception coming your way. I hope that makes sense to people. And so my thing is really just awakening people and enlightening people to something that they just might not be seeing. So anyways, I hope this was helpful, and this was kind of fun. Like I said, I only just jotted down about 7 of them, 7 signs that you're in a cult. That was just tapping into it. I could already tell now. And then I Googled the cult-like behavior on Google, and we just went over that, and it's quite fascinating to see the correlation between what I wrote down based on my experience and very, very little investigating versus what we just Googled. It's very similar. It was almost all of it exactly the same. So it's crazy that, some people learn stuff by reading and investigating and discovering. Some people learn it by going through it. Unfortunately, I learned it by going through it, but at least I'm helping people with that experience. I feel like I'm doing my part, and anything I can do to help people, I'm going to continue to do. And anything anybody else that can help me help other people, I'm super appreciative of. So I appreciate everybody's support and encouragement and positivity and all this feedback that you guys give me and what I'm talking about and the awareness I'm bringing. That does mean a lot to me because it helps my calling to help people. And that's what this is about. It's ain't even about me. I like saying this a lot because I want to make sure people understand this about me. It's like, I'm not on YouTube to get views. I'm not on here to chase money. I'm not here to serve myself. I'm here to help people, and I'm the tool that's being used to help people. And so the more engagement and the more views that I do get are obviously going to help me helping people. So that's what I'm here for, though, and I want people to understand that. And I appreciate that. So anyways, I'm going to get off here. Thank you guys so much. I'll check you guys later. Lorraine, Kat, Mong, anybody who's on Instagram, I'll tap into you here in a second. Stay tuned like I said, I might either do another part 2 on signs you're in a cult. It's got a ring to it, don't it? Signs that you're in a cult. It's got a not a good ring, but it's intriguing to me. You know what I mean? Like if I seen that, I'd be like, yeah, signs that I'm in a cult. I want to check that out. Let's see if I'm in a cult. So anyways, hopefully it attracts somebody and hopefully it helps somebody. But anyways, guys, take care. Enjoy the rest of your Tuesday, I believe, right? And we'll catch you guys later, all right? See ya.